But the most closely watched race tonight was probably the Republican primary for Kentucky's 4th congressional district, where Donald Trump and his billionaire allies waged quite a retribution campaign to unseat conservative incumbent Congressman Thomas Massie. And tonight, the Associated Press projects that Trump-backed challenger Ed Galbraith has defeated Thomas Massie in that primary. Nearly $33 million, I should note, was spent in that race, making it the most expensive congressional primary race in history. Donald Trump was so determined to oust Massie, he personally attacked him multiple times on Truth Social just in the last few days at events, and on X, calling him things like the worst congressman and a rhino, and urging voters repeatedly to replace him. He even dispatched his Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, to campaign for Massie's opponent, of course, while the country is in the middle of a war. The point is this. It's clear that Trump really, really, really wanted Thomas Massie out of office. And tonight, after his backers spent millions and he had used his own bully pulpit over and over again to attack Massie, he succeeded. So why did Trump spend so much energy to defeat a conservative congressman in this Republican primary? Well, I think Thomas Massie actually said it best himself.
I vote with Republicans 91% of the time. And the 9% I don't, they're taken up for pedophiles, starting another war, or bankrupting our country.
That about says it all. Thomas Massie is one of the most conservative members of Congress. But he has refused to stick by Donald Trump on 2 fundamental issues, very big ones this year, where Trump has betrayed his own MAGA base. I mean, Massie co-sponsored the resolution that forced the release of the Epstein files, and he's been a vocal critic of the administration's efforts to cover them up. You see him there on the screen with a bunch of survivors. And he's also opposed Trump's war with Iran and even co-sponsored the War Powers Resolution to end that war. Tonight in his concession speech, Massie touted his work on exposing Epstein's enablers and co-conspirators and hinted that there may be more to come.
We need basic decency. That's what the Epstein Files Transparency Act was all about. By the way, today is the 6-month anniversary of the Epstein Files Transparency Act. We've taken out 24 CEOs, an ambassador, a prince, a prime minister, a minister of culture. And that was just 6 months. I got 7 months left in Congress.
That guy does not seem to be slinking away. He almost seemed gleeful about the 7 months he has left in Congress to do a lot more on that particular issue. So, yeah, I mean, the guy has been a very loyal conservative on nearly every issue. I probably disagree with him on a lot of policy issues, a whole host of them, maybe the majority. He's also been a huge thorn in the side of Trump. And that is why Trump wanted Massie out of office. So for Donald Trump, tonight's primary is supposed to be all about loyalty. I mean, he wants to show that Republicans who are not unflinchingly loyal to him and his administration will pay a price. That's what it's about. He's already ousted Republican Senator Bill Cassidy for his heretical vote to convict Trump over January 6th. And he did the same to several Indiana state lawmakers who bucked his agenda on redistricting. The message is supposed to be that the only way to stay in Trump's good graces is by showering him with praise, supporting whatever he does, and telling him he's just amazing all around. But here's the thing. It doesn't actually always work like that with Trump. Now, don't get me wrong. Republicans who oppose Trump will probably wind up facing some mean tweets and a Trump-endorsed primary opponent and maybe millions spent against them. Just ask Thomas Massie. But Republicans who stay loyal to Trump don't always get rewarded for their so-called good behavior either. I mean, just consider the case of Texas Senator John Cornyn, who has embarrassed himself over and over again trying to stay in Trump's good graces. In the Senate, Cornyn votes with Donald Trump 99% of the time, even more than his fellow Texas Senator Ted Cruz. He posts cringy photos of himself on social media. You see there's the one on your screen. That's him reading Trump's book, just hoping that Trump will notice him and tell him he's a good boy. Now, this year, Cornyn even introduced a bill to rename a highway after Donald Trump, but none of that seemed to matter to Donald Trump. Because despite all of that, Trump announced just today that he will endorse John Cornyn's primary opponent, Ken Paxton, in the Texas Republican Senate runoff next week. And Trump made that decision despite all of Cornyn's humiliating attempts to suck up to him, and despite the fact that Ken Paxton is a deeply flawed candidate. I mean, this guy has spent years under a massive cloud of indictments, impeachment, whistleblower allegations, repeated allegations of misconduct and abuse of office. And that doesn't even touch on the allegations of adultery from his former wife, who filed for divorce on what she called biblical grounds. So, yeah, that guy Trump just endorsed, well, he might have a harder time holding onto that seat. And that's why Senate Republicans spent months trying to convince Trump to back Cornyn, and why they're now reportedly livid about Trump's decision. I mean, after Trump's endorsement, Senator Lindsey Graham told reporters that he thinks the Texas Senate race will cost Republicans 3 times as much money with Ken Paxton as their nominee. And that's money that Republicans won't be able to spend in other races, like, say, defending Ohio Senator and Trump loyalist Jon Husted in his race against former Senator Sherrod Brown, or defending Alaska Senator and Trump loyalist Dan Sullivan in his race against Mary Peltola. Trump isn't just betraying John Cornyn. He seems to be betraying all of his loyal, spineless supporters in the Senate. What Trump has demonstrated tonight is that no amount of loyalty can save you from Trump's impetuous decisions. Republicans can choose to stand up to Trump or worship the ground he walks on, but nothing will save them from the chaotic whims of a mad king.